This is Advanced Autonomy. I'm Luke Renner. Since we launched the podcast a few weeks ago, we've been really focused on the technical and philosophical aspects of the autonomous vehicle sector. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different and talk about what it's actually like to work at a startup working on these autonomous vehicle problems. My guest today is Emily McNamara. She's the Director of Operations and Finance and People for Sinjin. And today we're going to discuss her journey, dive into the Sinjin organization more broadly, and give you an insider's look into how Sinjin finds and recruits top talent. If you're thinking about a career in the autonomous vehicle sector or Silicon Valley more broadly, this conversation is for you. Hi, Emily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Luke. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to get a sense of what you do here at Sinjin because you have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of words in your job title. So maybe I should even just ask you, what don't you do?
Oh, that's a good question. What don't I do here? I don't code, so
Okay.
if you could say that. But I do feel that I'm very in touch with all aspects of Sinjin. Um,
Yeah.
I definitely, from the small things to kind of the larger items, I handle, I manage, I oversee. I certainly couldn't do what I do without the support that I have
Hmm.
and I've had in the past. I've got a great team on the operations side, but also I think the team that I'm working with, they're a great group and they make it easy for me to do my job because I'm the type of person that likes to touch many different areas, likes to dive into different areas due to the fact that they're not just challenging in the sense that there's a lot to do, but also the what that I have to do, and
Hmm.
and the ability to task switch, I think, is one of my strengths.
Yeah.
So I believe that because I've had the support that I've had, not only from our CEO and our management staff, but also the people on the ground, it's made it so that I can accomplish many, many things.
One of the things, and it's one of the things that I love about working at a startup, right, is this opportunity to wear a lot of different hats, do a ton of different things. I was wondering if maybe for someone who's never worked at a startup, for someone who has been in the corporate world for most of their career, I know that you've switched back and forth. What are some things that you've been surprised about working in a startup that maybe you didn't expect, or maybe you could preview for someone thinking about jumping over?
I would say that, what I thought was fast paced is not really that fast. And, it wasn't as fast as I thought it was until I joined this company, especially with my roles. But there is always going to be a sense of urgency in the things that I
Hmm.
do. And I actually thrive in that environment anyway. So it really spoke to my skill sets, but also how I work. And, it was not something that I really expected in this manner. I mean, it's ever changing, you know, and being someone that is very comfortable with the uncomfortable, I think that this really helped me to thrive,
Yeah.
and be successful.
What do you think is the reason that people bounce out of startups and go back to corporate life?
I think that part of it is that people walk into this with certain expectations that they have. I think in any part of life, you set expectations, you could set yourself up for disappointment. And I think
Hmm.
that the people that are more open and more open to change, those are the people that end up staying. Or they
Hmm.
already have in their mind, okay, I am trying to achieve XYZ. I'm here to learn. I'm here to get that sense of what it's like to work at a true startup, a true startup with the kind of clout and credibility that we have,
Hmm.
and they're here for a reason, a purpose, and it could be, their own personal purpose to further themselves professionally, or maybe it's something more personal. But every startup will be very different. So, you know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. That's one thing I really like about startups is because these companies are so small, they really do have their own personalities. They have their own
we do.
culture. They have just their own individual way of doing business, and that really allows you to find a great fit. And exactly to your point, sometimes there's not a great fit. So
Yeah. Yeah, and
that's
you don't know
that's
unless you
nice.
try, you really
Yeah.
don't know unless you try. And I'd like to point out one more thing that I think is very important, to understand is that, being at a startup where, you don't have RSUs, you could go and cash out and, have a whole lot of money, a pile of money to sit on. But if you come into this with knowing that, you could build this into that kind of company, if you're driven by money, I think that we're still very competitive when it comes to pay, but the valley, as you know, I think that there's always someone with like deeper pockets, waiting by the
Hmm.
corner. And if you're
Yeah.
the type that's going to jump from one place to another, hey, all more power to you. I wish you well, and that's what you're wanting to do. But I think for our company, if you're wanting to do something that's kind of bigger than yourself and you want to accomplish something, you want to see things through to the end, you truly want to grow with a network of people and really foster that growth, then this is the right place for you.
When you're talking to candidates, how do you determine whether someone's a good fit for Sinjin? What kind of questions do you ask them?
I think that when I talk to a candidate, one of the questions I ask is, what are your aspirations? What is your end game? Like, what is it you're trying to achieve? Are you fresh out of college and you're just starting your career? It gives me a better sense of what it is that you're wanting and how we could fit. And even
Hmm.
the seasoned professionals, when they come on board, I provide a different perspective for them too. They see kind of a broader picture and sense of what this could lead to. But then, with that response from them, I really do try to speak to more specifically, hey, we're that right team. We do have a need for you, and we could definitely use your knowledge and your experience. I think that it's all a matter of trying to align someone's perspective and expectations growing into a company like ours.
Yeah, understood. You go through hundreds of resumes a day. You're talking to tons of candidates all the time. And I imagine that sometimes you're getting applications or you're looking at resumes and you're like, are they for real? Is this a joke? So I want to give you a chance to set the record straight. What are some things that you wish everyone knew who is applying for a job that like you feel like should be super obvious by now, but maybe everyone just needs a check-in?
Yeah, I think some of them are pretty standard, like don't send a novel, as your resume. If it's something that's going to take us a half an hour to go through to understand, your background and what it's definitely a deterrent. And then, although we'd like to say, shoot for the stars, it needs to align with the technology and what we're doing. I mean, I think
Mm,
we even had someone that was like a former music teacher that wanted to, go into
right.
autonomous vehicles and
Yeah.
be an engineer.
So
It,
be concise and
yes,
be qualified. It sounds
yeah.
like.
Be
Yeah.
concise, be qualified, and be responsive. If we do reach out, like respond back in a timely
Yeah.
manner, reach back out 2 months later. Hey, but I'm not saying you can't. I mean, if you're very qualified and you have a plethora of offers and you're taking your time, there's no fault to that. But
Yeah.
I do believe that if you apply, you should go with that momentum and try to follow up. Yeah.
What have you learned about recruiting as you've been doing it that makes you more effective now than maybe you were when you started?
These are human beings and these are people, not just paper. I get a lot more responses from those that I put a personal touch. I don't just necessarily use generic templates. I do try to tweak them in a way where, I do know that that's a person on the other side,
Yeah.
you
And I
know?
think that's one of the reasons why people respond to startups, you know. And it's certainly why I responded to this opportunity when I started too.
Yeah,
It's
you're not gonna be folded into layers, you're
mhm.
a person, you're gonna have that kind of personal attention. The team is more intimate, because you're gonna have that touch,
Mhm.
and you really have to remember that these are people that you're dealing
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
So I joined after the pandemic started, but one of the things I know is that before the pandemic, Sinjin was not a remote company, and most people, almost nobody, worked remote. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you guys have managed the change, how switching to remote for the pandemic has changed the company, and how things are going now.
I think similar to other companies that have had to make changes that we really didn't want to make at that time because we were a smaller company and often we have to collaborate and be face to face in
Hmm.
terms of getting things done more efficiently and
Well, there's a
faster.
lot of research and development happening, right?
Yeah,
Like you need to be
absolutely.
working on the cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did have a hardware team that really needed to be here and very hands-on and on the ground and testing. Yeah, obviously with R&D that that needed to happen and it really hurt us, I think, during COVID to not be able to do that. But it forced us to take a hard look at, where before we were not a fan of working remotely, that there are some people in certain functions that they're efficient in being able to work from home.
Hmm.
But it really also showed us that there's great value in working together in person and being at meetings together in person. It helped us to appreciate that aspect of working together. So we are looking forward to kind of getting back into some level of normalcy, but with the renewed perspective and renewed appreciation for our colleagues and being able to work, together physically in person. Uh,
Hmm.
but also that sense of like excitement, for what we're doing. It took a hit, for the period that you're home by yourself and being in the HR function. I've noticed that, I've talked to individuals where their morale is, taking a hit. They're at their home and they're trying to adhere to COVID restrictions, and it's been difficult for them,
Hmm.
especially with those that have family overseas, and that they're not able to. I mean, my family's on the East Coast, but still, it was hard for me. I couldn't only
Yeah.
imagine if all of your family is out of the country and you're being told you can't even enter the country, or if you do, then you
Hmm.
can't leave. And just worrying for them and how the pandemic is hitting them over there. It really hits you hard, when you're trying to focus on work.
I think everyone's going to remember 2020 as a super strange year at
Yeah.
best. It's 2021 now. What are you most looking forward to for Sinjin for the rest of the year?
Well, the rest of the year, I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, getting back to the office and getting back to where we could have meetings together in the same room and be able to look someone in the eyes and not through a screen. And just that the feeling of human interaction. I think I'm definitely looking forward to that. Being together in the same room is just
Hmm.
a really important thing.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much. We had to reschedule this multiple times because you're so slammed. So I really appreciate the time
Yeah.
and have a great night, okay?
Okay. Same to you. Thanks, Luke. Bye.